of the Lower American. What's that?
That was just the Zoom.
Oh, Lower American River Conservancy Advisory Committee, welcome. We have a number of items on the agenda. We have one procedural action item. We have some information items and some presentations and our usual updates. Our first item is to call to order, which we've just done, and the roll call. Colin, would you please do the roll call for us?
Yes. Rebecca Thornton Sloan. Supervisor Rich Desmond. Supervisor Pat Hume.
Here.
Council Member Roger Dickinson. Council Member Phil Pluckybaum. Council Member David Sander. Morgan Kilgour. Stephen Benson. Nanette Lee. Stephen Green.
Here.
Corey Brown.
Here.
And Cassie Gilson.
Here.
Very good. And I'd like to welcome Rebecca Thornton Sloan, who's representing Supervisor Cerna today. So welcome to the meeting. The first item, the next item on the agenda is public comments. And do any members of the public have comments they would like to make for items that are not on the agenda? Anybody online?
There are no raised hands.
No raised hands and nobody in present with items for public comments. We'll move on to our procedural action item, which is our annual electing a chair and vice chair for 2026. I've been serving as chair the last couple of years. If folks want, I'm willing to keep serving. If somebody else wants to be in this position, I'm willing to yield as well.
I would nominate Corey Brown to remain as chair.
Any seconds?
Don't need a second for nomination.
Okay, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you. Our next item is to elect a vice chair, and I'd like to nominate Supervisor Hume to continue on in the position as vice chair. Any discussion? Second. Let's go to hearing no discussion. Let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Supervisor Hume, you will continue in your position as vice chair. Congratulations.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a few informational items that are in written form. Both a list that Kara Allen has kindly maintained and with updates, and that's all on the website and with a link on the agenda. There's also a funding summary. Does anybody have any questions regarding any of the informational items? Nobody present. Anybody online have any questions about informational items?
There are no raised hands.
Thank you. Hearing none. One thing I just want to point out in the funding summary, we have a little bit more than $2.5 million available to the Conservancy and the Advisory Committee. Those funds are primarily from Proposition 4 that voters approved in November 2024, the Safe Drinking Water Wildfire Protection Act. The measure included $10 million, so there's still $7 million that could be available for the Lower Conservancy program, Lower American River Conservancy program, that has not yet been appropriated by the legislature. Just wanted to point out that because funding availability is obviously very important to the work we do. We'd like to now go into presentations, and we have 15-minute presentations. First, I'd like to introduce, is Diana Pagetto here? Diana is going to be talking about an update on the completion of where we are in the Parkway project, a project of her American River Parkway Foundation. For those who've ridden their bikes or walked along the Parkway through the Jedediah Smith Trail, you'll see very helpful directional signs that which one of the first projects we funded. Diana, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's an honor to be here to actually say we have completed the project, which is always great. And we were under budget, which is even better. The Parkway Foundation, we realized there was a need for new signage because we actually commissioned a survey back in 2018. Marion Carson at the time, who was an organization that existed at that point, actually commissioned the survey. And the results were that no one knew where they were in the parkway and that signage was greatly needed. So this is why we actually applied for the funding for that. Next slide, please. We submitted the proposal in 2019. We actually received funding in 2020, which was quite fun during COVID. I think we actually signed the documents in June via just multiple learning how to live through COVID. And the objective of the grant was really simple: add wayfinding signage on the American River Parkway. We looked at numerous different parks throughout the United States, how they had their signage, what was it. The existing "You Are Here" signs that had been on the parkway, Liz, I don't even know when they were put in, but they were so faded you could not even see where you were on the parkway. So clearly no one knew where they were on the parkway. Next sign, please. We came up with a concept for the signs, sent it to Sacramento County Regional Parks, and it was determined that the county sign manual had to be updated. This process of updating the sign manual took 2 years, and all of you that are in government know what that's like. So it took us a little bit longer, and during this time, so during that 2-year span, we also hired Marion Carson to conduct focus groups on the potential new signage. What did they like? What did they not? Those members that were invited to the focus groups represented nonprofits, neighborhood associations, as well as one-on-one interviews with the elected representatives. Next slide, please. The wayfinding concept was very positively received. We also learned that when people are on the parkway, if they're riding a bike, they go on average 5 miles. If they're walking, they go anywhere from 1 to 3 miles. So as we were learning this, and we also learned that most people, if they live within a certain neighborhood, they don't go outside of that neighborhood. People that live in Sailor Bar stay in Sailor Bar. They don't cross to go over to Sacramento Bar. So we learned a lot just saying, how do we include different aspects of the parkway onto these signs so that people can understand where they are and what are those longer distance points. Next slide, please. As you can see there, some felt that we didn't need signs, others said we already know it, but for the majority of people that are out on the parkway, they don't know where they are, do not know where they were. Next slide, please. The Pacific Neon, which is a company based here in Sacramento, actually created the signs. They are Corten steel, which is the main part, and then they are made of graffiti-proof material, and screws are anti-tamper. Well, let me tell you, graffiti proof is only so good. So since the installation in 2023, we have had to replace 4 signs due to graffiti, vandalism, and being hit by a truck. So that is our responsibility as an organization. The Sacramento County Regional Parks does not supply any funds to help cover the cost. The signs cost about $2,500 to replace currently. It could change, with different supply issues. The mile 14 and 15 are the most heavily damaged, vandalized on the entire parkway, with different insignias that have been placed on there. Someone actually came and sheared off all the bolts on another one of the signs. So even though they're graffiti proof and vandalism proof, that I think is a misnomer. Next slide, please. We believe, and from what we have heard, there is huge value in the signs. People are happy to have them out there. Not only do they have a map of the parkway, they also have, from the parkway's perspective, who adopts our miles, whether it's a financial sponsor or a volunteer. So those are always constantly being updated. There is also information about an emergency, and there are the definitions of 1 to 20 miles. So as you go out on the parkway, you can see where you are on the parkway. And we've had very good positive feedback from the signs overall. So again, thank you on behalf of the American River Parkway Foundation for funding us for the Where Are You on the Parkway.
Very good, Diana. Thank you for the presentation. The signs are really wonderful as you're riding on the parkway. Everything you said in terms of knowing where you're at, what's close by, giving people a better sense of place. So thank you for the good work of the foundation on that. Let me ask you if any of the members have any questions.
Just curious if you could tell us what a milestone marker is for mile 14 or 15?
Mile 14 and 15, actually, it's in Supervisor Pat Hume's district. Mile 14 is on the other side of Riverbend Park. So if you get into Riverbend, so it's Rancho Cordova area.
Thanks.
Easy access to walk in also.
Mhm.
Other questions, comments? And I have a quick question for you on the graffiti-proof surfaces when it is graffiti. How effective are those in terms of being able to quickly remove the graffiti?
It depends what the graffiti is made out of, if it's paint or what. So there are graffiti wipes. These signs have this special laminate that's not supposed to deteriorate the sign when it's cleaned. And for those of you that work in parks, you understand. Some of them are easy to clean and others have had to be replaced because not possible.
Very good. Seeing no other questions, thank you so much for the presentation. And the very good work the foundation has been doing for years to protect and make a better parkway. So
Yeah, and
thank you.
just real quick, because I know Kara wanted to ask about what we were doing in the future. Just so you know, we actually have a survey that is out right now in the community, and it's also going out to our members next week, asking questions about the parkway. You know, what are the values of the parkway? How do you access? Where do you access? What would you like to see improvements wise? So we will be coming forward with some of those hopefully by mid-May with some of the findings from that survey.
I'm sure everybody on this panel will be very interested in seeing those the survey results. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Our next presentation is by Charlene Vine with the Lionheart community. Charlene is just a tremendous advocate for disability access into to nature, and been in a few different meetings with Charlene. Great expertise and a pleasure to have you here, Charlene.
Does it work now?
There you go.
All right. No.
Kara, why don't you come?
Messed it all up. Hello?
There you go.
Very good.
All right. So once again, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm Charlene Vine, and I have some slides. There we go. All right. So I am the founder and also the executive director of the Lionheart community. We are a 501c3, and we serve people in the Sacramento region. And we provide pathways for independence for people living with paralysis. And our mission is pretty simple. And I'd like to show you what we do and how you guys fit into that. Next slide, please. So back in 2000, I was living up in the High Sierra Mountains and living my best life. I was really involved in backcountry snowboarding. And then I fell and I broke my T11 vertebrae in half, and the sharp bone ended up cutting my spinal cord, and that left me paralyzed from my waist down. So one moment I was living my best life on top of a mountain, and the next moment I found myself in the hospital, not even understanding how to go to the bathroom again. There's not a single aspect of your life that paralysis does not touch. And what most people don't realize is the secondary complications are usually much worse than the original injury, and those last throughout a lifetime. Over the last almost 26 years of being paralyzed, I've had over 23 surgeries. So I've learned a lot about what it means to be resilient. And SCI is the steepest hill that I've ever had to climb, for sure. And it's definitely the hardest path to walk this life with. So next slide. So when paralysis strikes, it doesn't knock on your door, it just kicks the door down. Sorry, and I'm just one of the 12,000 people in the area who deals with paralysis. And paralysis affects every aspect of your life. It affects your physical and mental well-being, your finances, your relationships, your housing, your sense of identity. And it's just really, really overwhelming. And it's so overwhelming that 40% of the population attempts suicide. So this is why I started Lionheart, because that stat just always stops me cold. We need each other. We need a community to rely on, and we need answers in order to get through this injury. And we need solutions. Oh, nervous here. Give me, sorry. So let's go to the next slide. What does Lionheart actually do? So we show up at the hospitals. When somebody's newly injured, the hospitals reach out to us. We have 25 trained peer mentors. We go to the hospitals with what's called a Lionheart launch kit. These kits are filled with resources that the community has identified as essential. And more importantly, the people come with lived experience to try to answer questions. When you're in a hospital bed and you're paralyzed, you don't just need information. You need like a spark that's going to give you some hope to keep going. So when we go in there and you see somebody that looks like you and that we're doing okay, it gives that spark of hope. Next slide. The transition from hospital to home has become much harder over the last 10 years. Stays have drastically reduced by 75%. So people are being discharged faster, often without equipment, knowledge, and the support that they need. And so this is one of the gaps that we're really trying to fill. We provide small grants to enable independence with things like adaptive equipment, home modifications, and transportation. And then we also are running over 90 support groups a year in hospital or in the community and online in person. And then this year, we're also adding in a Spanish-speaking support group as the need has been growing. Next slide. And so once people begin to stabilize, we try to focus on getting them back into participating at life. We host regular social groups like dinners, movies, and comedy nights. And this can sound pretty simple, but this can be really huge for somebody dealing with paralysis because they don't know if they can get out, if it's going to be accessible, and a lot of times they feel like everybody's staring at them. So we provide these experiences, and these moments help rebuild people's confidence, connection, and the sense of normalcy. And then this year, we've also launched an adaptive weekly workout class in Rancho Cordova. It's a dedicated gym space just for our community, and it's led by an instructor who's also in a wheelchair. And this has just become a really great initiative and really popular so far. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. And so this brings us to our adaptive outdoor adventure series. Last year, we ran a river rafting trip on the American River with Headwaters Adventure Company. We put 10 wheelchair users in kayaks and rafts and one blind participant. And then we launched from Sunrise and went down to Gristmill, and it was an amazing experience for everybody, even the volunteers. And so we're going to be doing this event again this year on May 30th. Next slide. And then we also partner with a nonprofit called Nature Tracks. They provide all-terrain wheelchair attachments, as you can see here. And we've gone out on several hikes on the American River Parkway over the years. And this year, we're going to be adding in some adaptive biking to the event. And we're looking to do that on June 20th. And I think either in Lower Sunrise or Discovery. We wanted to do it in William B. Pond, but it's booked already. Next slide. And we're also working with Chris here from McGillen Mobility. And we want them to bring out their fleet of adaptive off-road vehicles for a big event out at Deer Creek Preserve this fall. And so to date, we have delivered over 360 adaptive adventures. Many of our members, for many of them, this is their first experiences since they've been injured. And so this plays a critical role in rebuilding people's independence and their confidence. And it also brings a lot of smiles, which can be really hard to come by when you're dealing with this injury. Next slide, please. Okay, so we develop pathways to independence that empower individuals with paralysis to achieve healthier outcomes, reintegrate into society, and to fully participate at life. Everything we do is about independence in some way, not just physical independence, but also psychological independence. Because paralysis is really brutal, and taking control of your life again is really important. Next slide, please. And so this is some of the impact we've had so far. We've delivered 87 care packages to people in hospitals. We just started a wheelchair loan program last year, so we were able to lend out 12 wheelchairs. We've facilitated about 1,140 exchanges of medical equipment. We're doing 90 support groups this year with an average attendance of 17 people. And then over the last 2.5 years since we became a nonprofit, we provided 3,334 hours of support, which actually is probably doubled because we started a lot of our support groups back in 2020 when COVID hit. And then 360 outdoor experiences. And then our operating budget last year was 65,000. And then this year, we're projecting about 98,000. Next slide, please. So through our recreation work, we've become increasingly involved on the American River Parkway, and we've worked alongside of the American Parkway Coalition, and we've been consulting along a lot of the adaptive projects that are happening right now at Sailors Bar, Sutter's Landing, and also at Rossmore Bar. And what we keep seeing again and again is accessibility decisions are being made without people with lived experience. The ADA is blindly accepted as the gold standard, but we're finding out that this does not always fit into the parkway projects. Mostly because the nature of the ever-changing nature on the parkway. It's just constantly changing, and it's hard for cement to change with that. These projects, I'm sure, are built with good intentions, but sometimes when the disabled users show up, they're not often working as they're intended to work. And I think the failure is not really the intention, but the failure is with data. Next slide, please. So here's the specific gap. Nobody has systematically asked the disabled community where they want to recreate on the parkway. And nobody has collected information needed to answer what is accessible now on the parkway. There's no overarching map of accessibility. So nobody knows which paved trails are flat enough for a manual wheelchair to go on or a power wheelchair. Nobody knows which sections become impassable at certain grades, where the accessible features are located, where areas offer real access to the water as opposed to just looking at the water. And without this information, all this planning becomes a lot of guesswork. And then well-intentioned investments can miss the mark. So we want to try to change that. Next slide, please. So our approach is called the Heart Initiative, and this addresses these issues by putting people with disabilities to work to try to collect these datas. The Heart Initiative stands for health and equity through access to recreation and trails. So using precision GPS technology attached to different mobility devices, we can measure trails in detail. We can measure the slope, the surface, and the usability of it. A surveyor sure can go out and measure a trail, but a wheelchair user or a person with that disability can actually tell you when, where, and how they're going to use it, and if it is actually usable. So we intend to pair that with a full inventory of approximately 25 parks on the parkway. And that would include restrooms, parking, water access, surface types, shade, seating, and much more. We've come up with these two assessments here, one for parks and one for trails that are really comprehensive. And then after the data was collected, this data would be made publicly accessible through maps, reports, and digital tools so people can plan accurately for projects and for recreation. This also creates meaningful paid work for people with disabilities that is usually sometimes really hard to find for us to do. and that directly serves the community. Next slide, please. So at the end of this initiative, we would produce a report that guides decision-making for the California Wildlife Conservancy, for the Sacramento County Regional Parks, and the Sacramento Aged and Disability Plan, and along with also getting that information out to the general public. It identifies what access already exists, where the barriers remain, and where the future investments would have the greatest impact. And that seems to align with your voting of last meeting that you wanted to expand access on the parkway. And this also allows the funding to be more directed in a strategic, efficient way, and it's also would be grounded in real life user experience. And that would create a more inclusive and inviting parkway for everybody. All right, next slide, please. So in front of you, there might be some books there. So this model has already been done down in the East Bay, which is really exciting because we can just duplicate it. And a lot of my friends have done it. And so this has increased park usage down there and allowed people to visit plans out into their parks with a lot of confidence. And then we have one of the people who helped put that together here today online, Ashley Olson. And she's just moved into the area. We're really lucky. And she's also signed up to help with this project. And so we want to bring that same level of clarity and access to the American River Parkway. Next slide, please. So there's three places where I think we really converge, the Wildlife Conservancy and Lionheart. One is equitable access to public lands. The American River Parkway belongs to everybody, right? But right now it isn't quite equally accessible. People with disabilities don't really know what's possible for them on the parkway. And so this initiative changes that. Equitable access is part of what the public lands are for. The second is maximizing the public benefit to conserve investments. So you're already invested in this land, and we want to make sure those investments reach the full public, including all the underserved communities. The data we collect would help ensure future accessibility dollars are spent in the right place and are also based on the community needs. And the third is the scalable opportunity for impact through partnership. An accessible parkway is a parkway that's better for everybody. This data just doesn't serve wheelchair users. It serves the planners, the seniors, families with strollers, and anyone navigating varying terrain with mobility needs. What we're building with the HEART initiative is a foundation, and it's an information layer. Once we understand where the access exists and where the gaps are, then we can try working to fill those gaps. So I believe there's a version of this partnership that neither of us could build alone. And that brings me to our ask, which I want to just leave you with a simple image. Pretend you're a person who got hurt 2 years ago and you're now in bed with a spinal cord injury, and you used to love being on the parkway and you're only 10 minutes away from it now. But you're stuck and you can't go because you don't know what's possible now for you out there. You don't know if you'll be able to reach the water and swim. You don't know if the trail will become too steep and you're going to get stuck. You don't know if there's a bathroom that will be accessible for you to use. And that can paralyze you and keep you locked in your house. So these things aren't really mobility barriers. This is more of an information barrier. And an information barrier is easy to solve. And the HEART initiative is how we might be able to solve it together. So Sacramento County is already committed. They're providing coordination, volunteer support, and access to parkway infrastructure and their equipment. The Sacramento Aging and Disability Plan is also at the table, and they've offered intern support. And so 2 public agencies have already said yes to us. We just need you guys on board for the funding. So we'll be submitting a grant to you, and that would fund GPS units, train disabled assessors collecting data and to inventory about 25 parks. And the final reports will go to you, Sacramento County Parks, to the Age and Disability Plan, to the public, and to whatever other entity might need it. So we're not asking that you build new trails. We're asking that you fund knowledge that tells every funder, every planner, and every disability user of the parkway where they can go and where the next dollar should be spent to open up more access. Next slide, please. All right, so my name is Charlene Vine. Again, you can email me at char@the-Lionheart-Community, and Chris is here, Liz is here, Ashley's online, and we would love to answer any questions that you might have about this. And I just wanted to thank you so much for your time.
Charlene, thank you so much for your work and for the presentation. Want to see if any of the members of the committee have any questions. Supervisor?
Thank you, Chair. This is a great guide. And so your ask then is essentially that we identify the accessibility features of the different trails within the parkway?
Yeah, I think one of the really easy things in that guide is you'd be able to see the park and see exactly what amenities would be in there. And we could also do some write-ups about trails and which trails might be easiest. Also in this book, they present a challenge. So they ask people to hike a certain amount of miles within the year. And if you do and submit what you've hiked, you get a pin, a commemorative pin in return. So I think that's kind of special too.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? Charlene, we've funded a couple of projects, one at Rossmore Bar in Supervisor Hume's district, one at Sutter's Landing in Councilman Pluckabaum's district. One of the questions that comes up at times is what type of surfaces work for folks in wheelchairs. As his background, my mother-in-law was on a wheelchair for 25 years, 10 of those years with a respirator attached to it. And my wife and I were able to get married on a beach because we were able to borrow a wheelchair with the right wheels, even though it was a sandy beach. The question we often get faced with is what type of surfaces are workable to provide disability access?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, cement works great, I think overall, but I think with the parkway, you run into a lot of issues with that. I know at Sutter's Landing, they're trying to put a cement ramp in on the beach, but that beach floods every year. And so this is one of the problems we've seen a lot, where people put in a cement ramp, but then it's not maintained in any way. And then there's erosion that happens under the ramp, and then stuff collects on top of the ramp. And so it just ends up making the ramp unusable. So I think in certain situations like that, we really need to explore different materials, something like a Moby mat that can be put down and then could also adjust when the typography adjusts. And then a lot of us that go out hiking think that packed aggregate is fine to roll on. A lot of the events that I've done, people with the highest injuries that use vents have been able to roll on that without any issues or problems.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Very good. Well, thank you so much again for your excellent presentation.
Yeah.
And we will keep in mind the work that you are doing as we're looking at future grant projects, and your input and the input of folks part of your organization is very welcome. And
Yeah.
part of our goal is to provide access, and be able to provide equitable access is very important.
Yeah, feel free. I can pass out my business card to everybody. If you ever have a project that you'd like some wheelchair users input on, feel free to reach out and we can get some people out there.
Very good. Thank you so much. And your
Yeah.
contact information is in the materials if folks have any additional follow-up questions.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you very much. We have one more presentation. Casey Sorgan with the county regional parks will be providing us with an update of the natural resources management plan. Casey, welcome. I should mention that when AB 1716 was written, one of the items was prioritizing the development of a natural resources management plan to guide our work and to guide the county's work in improving the parkway. That's part of our statutory charge, is to follow that plan and appreciate your being here to give us an update.
Yeah, so I'm Casey Sorgan, Senior Planner at Regional Parks. And I am here to give an update on where we're at with the implementation of the Natural Resource Management Plan. I do have a PowerPoint there. Okay. So to ground us in the process on the next slide, the 2023 NRMP serves as our primary guide for all natural resource decisions with a full cycle intended to occur every 5 to 10 years, a full cycle update. The monitoring plan, which provides the framework for how we measure and report our success, was finalized in 2024. Currently, the first annual monitoring report is being reviewed by the NRMP Advisory Committee, and we expect to have that finalized by the end of the month. Okay, as we move to the next slide, I will walk you through our 5 primary goal areas and highlight our progress toward achieving the actionable objectives defined for each of the 22 specific goals. So in the moving into our first goal, 1.1, assess biological resources parkway wide, we have begun vegetation mapping. 30% of it has been completed to the alliance level using the California Vegetation Manual of California Vegetation at a resolution of a 1/4 acre. This was initiated in 2023 with Wild Rye Consulting, and we anticipate 100% completion by June. The methodology is highly innovative. It utilizes existing high-resolution imagery and machine learning model corrected with field surveys. This has proven to be very efficient and cost-effective for obtaining the vegetation community data. Next slide. Objectives 1.1B through 1.D. 1.1D focus on baseline data and tracking systems. In 2025, we initiated and completed baseline habitat surveys across the parkway utilizing existing maps. Additional surveys will be conducted in 2026 based on the fine scale mapping that is going to be done in June. Tracking of invasive plants is ongoing. It's a collaborative effort with volunteers and the American River Parkway Foundation. They collect the data on weeds that they're pulling, so it's more of a transient layer, and we will integrate that into a map with more of the static vegetation that we are mapping as part of the veg mapping. So for encampment tracking 1.1D, this has also been an ongoing effort where rangers and maintenance coordinate directly on the location of camps for abatement in conjunction with the existing 311 system. This has been a very effective method. Next slide. Okay. The habitat management strategy goals are based on 3 categories: conservation, restoration, and naturalization. This dictates the level of effort needed to maintain and create or enhance high quality habitat across our 4 primary types: riparian habitat, grassland, woodland, and elderberry. Under goal 1.2, conservation of habitat, our current objective is to quantify our baseline acreage. This is ongoing and will be finalized once the vegetation mapping and habitat surveys are complete. This conservation category will also be updated as the objectives for restoration and naturalization are realized. Next slide. This table tracks our progress towards our 3 to 5 year restoration targets for the restoration and naturalization management categories. We've seen a significant success in riparian and salmon habitat creation, with over 26 acres created through the core and water form projects primarily in the middle and upper reaches of the parkway. For grassland and woodland, while the table shows 0, it's important to note that planning is well underway for 35 to 40 acres of native grassland and 12 acres of woodland, primarily as a result of grant funding approved through this committee and the Wildlife Conservation Board. And we greatly appreciate that. We expect to exceed these targets within a 5-year timeframe. Next slide. Okay, looking forward, we have several key initiatives, starting under goal 1.5, rehabilitating damaged habitat. We will begin identifying and preparing a plan for areas damaged by human use, wildfire and erosion, and integrate those repairs into our annual O&M cycle, the ones that we can. Otherwise, it will be covered in a plan. The wildlife connectivity 1.6, in 2027, we intend to begin focusing on developing a connectivity opportunity plan to reduce barriers for fish and wildlife. The fine scale mapping for vegetation and surveys through Waterform will help inform this effort. Invasive species 1.7, we are also intending to initiate the process for preparing this formal invasive plant management plan in 2027. And then the replacement of 5 acres of invasive species will occur as part of the native grassland restoration activities, and we will exceed that 5-acre target. Next slide. Okay, under goal area 2 and 3 related to physical and cultural resources, we have been coordinating with the Corps on bank protection contracts, which would complete their American River Common Features project and protect 100% of the levees through the parkway at 160,000 CFS. Water quality is monitored ongoing by the State Water Board, specifically for E. coli to help ensure public health. For cultural resources, 3.1 through 3.2, we are moving forward with protection plans for 2 listed archaeological sites to halt erosion and prevention. And we have continuing coordination meetings and collaboration with the tribes to ensure that the traditional ecological knowledge is helping to inform our management decisions in the parkway, including protection of those 2 archaeological sites. Next slide. Okay, managing the balance between recreation and ecology is an ongoing operational focus. For 4.1, minimizing human use impacts, that is occurring through a standard process of review and is just something that we do through processes, making sure that any facilities we're developing are sensitive to water resources. In 2025, we started mapping the social trails throughout the parkway. There's lots of them, and that effort is continuing this year, but we hope to have it finished by the end of the year. And then for encampments, 4.2, this is an ongoing effort with rangers and maintenance crews and volunteers who are tirelessly working to mitigate debris and safety hazards throughout the parkway. For the large group and special event monitoring, 4.3, this also is an ongoing process that is conducted by our recreational staff to ensure that we're in compliance with the parkway plans for those events. Next slide. Okay, so utility corridors, 4.4. Since 2023, we have been focused on building relationships with SMUD, WAPA, and PG&E to come to a partnership where we can manage the vegetation underneath the corridors to meet our ecological goals. This is pretty much been, it's going to be an ongoing effort to develop that partnership with them. So, but we're making progress. Okay, in 2027, we will initiate we intend to initiate the ambient lighting surveys and update our interpretive plan. Let's see. Okay, we also just, as a matter of course, are integrating interpretive elements into our larger mitigation projects to educate the public on the natural resources. Next slide. Oh. Okay. So in 2023, a advisory committee for the NRMP was established through the American River Parkway Advisory Committee. And they are the ones reviewing our annual monitoring report right now. Also initiated was the wildfire hazard reduction effort under 5.2. The American River Parkway Foundation through the Fire Safe Council began drafting the wildfire prevention plan, and that will contribute to helping us develop and maintain a tracking system as well. So support scientific research in the Parkway, 5.3. This was initiated in 2024 as part of our regular administrative process. As people come in looking for an encroachment permit to do research studies, we ask them if they can help us identify potential ways to integrate citizen science or community science into that process. That was done through one of the projects, the Phoebe project, and there's more information about that on our website. Let's see. Additionally, we're working with CSUS right now to develop an ongoing research program in the Parkway, asking them also to help us identify additional research needs and also how we can integrate community science into that ongoing research. Next slide. Okay, we are currently building a database and website that will house all of the map data and all of the documents that are created as a result of this natural resource management plan. And we expect to launch expanded public outreach and educational efforts in 2026 for 5.5. So next slide. To summarize our progress, out of 39 total objectives across our 5 goal areas, we have already initiated 29. This is nearly 75% of the objectives identified in the NRMP. And the annual monitoring report should be finalized by the end of the month, like I said, and that is all I have. I'm happy to take questions.
Very good, Casey. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's great to see the county tracking progress, reporting progress. This is something that's very important, and not all agencies do that, and it's great to see. The Natural Resources Management Plan was one of the first things that Lower American River Conservancy funded, so it's great to see the progress on this. I want to ask if there's any questions by any of the advisory committee members. Seeing no questions, I've got a couple quick items. One is on the utility corridors. That's one of the major places that there's opportunities to do restoration. It was good to see that being identified in the Natural Resources Management Plan. You mentioned it's an ongoing process. Can you give us a little more information on that?
So over the past, there has been some efforts to work with SMUD and PG&E and WAPA related to pollinator habitat. I think there was an expectation that there would be continued maintenance of that, and that didn't necessarily happen. So they're a little reluctant to initiate a partnership with us at that point. So we're just working on building our relationship back up with them and demonstrating that we are serious about maintaining the resources in the Parkway moving.
Well, thanks for the ongoing effort in that. I know PG&E chopped down quite a few trees the Lower Parkway, and this is an ongoing issue. So thank you. Just one final comment on the interpretive plans. The more that can be done online, especially for kids or youth, online access to information, that can be especially helpful. So thank you for continuing on the interpretive plan. Seeing no other questions, Casey, want to thank you very much. And then I think we're going to move on to our informational items. We're pleased to have with us in person Liz Bellis, our Director of Regional Parks, who is overall person working with under the supervisors who's in charge of the Parkway. And welcome and thank you for your being here for your twice a year updates to the Conservancy.
Absolutely. Good morning. Thank you all for having me. I want to first take some time to really recognize Casey from my staff because she does a tremendous job and has a lot of work on her plate and has done a lot to get us where we are today. And also want to recognize the other women in the room, Diana from the Parkway Foundation. She has also been a great resource. The foundation has been a great resource in partnership with the county. So I'm pleased to continue that. And Shar, we have been working for about a year now on some of the plans that she presented to you today. So we're excited that we're going to be able to move forward with a grant application to the board. So with all that, I usually start with some of our statistical trends. So I want to let you know for 2025, we did remove and abate 1,294 encampments and removed 1,408.5 tons of trash and debris. But please keep in mind that for trends, this was a 23.1% reduction from 23 to 2025 on encampments and a 28.1% reduction in trash and debris from 23 to 25. We're going in the right direction. And a lot of anecdotal stories that we get from Parkway users is it looks phenomenal. The encampments are much less. People feel safe. They're ready to go back out there and recreate on our Lower American River Parkway. And that is just a beautiful thing. So some of the big updates. We had to do a levee repair at Watt Avenue. It was an emergency repair. There was a hole in the levee. We did get that completed in about, was it 6 months or so? Yeah, 6 months, which in government time is like lightning fast, just FYI. It cost us about $400,000 though, and we're going to have to figure out how, what projects we're going to have to possibly unfund in our capital program to make up for that difference, unfortunately. We are working right now in partnership with the Department of Transportation, Public Health, and First Five on a e-bike, e-moto, e-scooter education campaign. One of the things that are happening in all over the nation, but in parks, on our streets, in public areas, our folks are giving our children a different experience in life, but they're buying them these e-motos without, I think, the full knowledge base of really the dangers of these. They are motorcycles. They've been defined as motorcycles by CHP. So we're going to work on a public education campaign on why those are not allowed in the Parkway. What is allowed on the Parkway is a Class 1 and a Class 2 e-bike. And sometimes people get those confused. And so they're lumping everything in like, oh, the e-bikes are out of control. Well, the Class 1, Class 2 e-bikes used responsibly and not modified are an excellent way for people to have use of the Parkway that might not be able to otherwise on a traditional bike. So we don't want to lump them all in, but we also want to provide the education to folks on what is responsible use, what is safe use, and what is not allowed. We are also putting together some urgency ordinances that will be going to the Board of Supervisors for hopefully adoption. And that is related to another thing that is happening where we have a lot of youth that are, and some adults that are going into our nature study areas and our protected areas, and they're building bike jumps and what we call, we're aging ourselves here, but when we call them BMX tracks, it's not really BMX anymore, but they're doing a lot of that damage. And so we are going to bring these ordinances to the department so that are to the Board of Supervisors for adoption so that we can have a better tool of hopefully preventing this from happening. Right now, that is an infraction. A violation is an infraction. We're asking it to be, could be an infraction or a misdemeanor at the discretion of the officer so that we can really get to the egregious and the ongoing damage to our parks. We have an off-paved trail subcommittee that was formed at the behest of the Recreation and Park Commission. So if you are aware, there are two areas of the American River Parkway where off-paved trail use is allowed, and that is Cal Expo and Wood Lake. Cal Expo has really been offline because of the work that the Caltrans has been doing over Biz 80. So we are looking at all of the other areas. Per the Parkway plan, you can expand off-paved trails use on maintenance roads and fire breaks. So we're taking a look at all of the area plans, and we hope to have recommendations back to the Recreation and Park Commission around June, July timeframe. So those are the big overview updates for you all. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions by committee members? Roger?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Liz, I have a couple things. First of all, with respect to clearing encampments, one of the things that occurs when encampments are cleared out of the American River Parkway, which is certainly a desirable thing to do, is that people migrate. They migrate up Steelhead Creek, they migrate to Arcade Creek, and so they don't vaporize. They go other places. Hopefully, there are in the outreach teams are folks who are encouraging people to take services and come into the system to get them out of homelessness. But I'm curious to the extent to which, if at all, the activity on the parkway to clear encampments is coordinated with the city of Sacramento, with other agencies with respect to those activities, so that we can have a unified approach related to particularly the creeks and streams and the parkway.
No, absolutely. So our park resources team works very closely with both the county's Department of Housing and Homeless Services, but also with COHIWO, is that the correct acronym? I want to make sure I said that right, with the city of Sacramento, so that we are trying to do as much outreach as possible. When we are encountering folks that are especially vulnerable, like a family or something on the parkway, we are doing a lot of outreach to make sure that folks are getting connected to the services so that they know what is happening out there. And we have a great working relationship with both of those, both the city and the county side, to try and get people, as you said, into services as much as possible.
But so when there's activity on the parkway to clear encampments, is that communicated to the city, specifically the Department of Community Response, for example, or the American River Flood Control District or RD 1000, that those activities are going on in the parkway, so that they can be prepared to also address issues, say on Steelhead Creek, Arcade Creek, and the like?
So yes, our agencies have been in communication. We communicate regularly with the city police, obviously also with the county HOT, which is the homeless outreach teams with the sheriff's department. So we are in communication. We even have had joint efforts in our parkway on that. So obviously, communication is a great thing, and the better the communication, the better outcomes for everyone. And we are always looking at ways of making sure that communication is strengthened.
Okay, thanks. The other thing that struck me, not just in your presentation, but what we've heard earlier this morning, is over the years in speaking to visitors who have come here for conventions, meetings, and the like, I have often suggested that if they have a chance during their time here, visit the parkway, because it's such a wonderful asset that we have. But, as a practical matter, if you're here downtown at the convention center, someone says, go visit, we got this great parkway. You go, well, where is it? What is it? And how do I get there if I know what it is? I'm curious whether you've ever worked with Visit Sacramento, for example, to give people, whether it's maps or electronically or some other means, information on how people actually can get to the Parkway if they hear one of us say, hey, you ought to go do that, and they go, oh, that sounds great. I'd like to go out there. Have you done anything like that with Visit Sacramento?
So obviously, we work closely with Visit Sacramento with some of the larger events such as Aftershock and Ironman and whatnot. But I agree with you. I think that if we could develop some more materials that we could hand out to visitors, that would be a great thing to pursue.
Yeah, it might be just something actually electronically that people could tap into and then have
Yes,
an electronic map or wayfinding to get there.
an app called Outer Spatial that has all of our parks mapped out on that. So we can work with them to maybe promote that app so people have a way to easily find their way about the trail system.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Any other questions, Supervisor?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that presentation, and I know that the amount of trash we continue to pull out of the parkway is still a little staggering, but we are making progress. And we are making progress up in some of the upper reaches of the creeks and restoring that habitat, and salmon are returning, so that's a good thing. Steelhead are returning. My question is relative to the Watt Avenue levee repairs. Obviously, we're facing austerity measures at the upcoming budget, so every dollar is sacred and some dollars are more sacred than others. And, parks dollars, certainly for me, fall into the cannot be easily supplanted. Were those repairs, are they not reimbursable by either Safeco or FEMA or some other source?
Unfortunately, no.
And why is that if we're repairing the levee?
Because it was within the park system. So they said it was our responsibility. It was a irrigation or, excuse me, not an irrigation line, but a drinking fountain line that went through the levee and unfortunately caused erosion. And so we were on the hook.
Well, isn't that convenient?
I don't think very convenient, but yes, believe me, my brain is trying to think of creative ways to somehow get money to help us out.
No, I know that, and that's why I asked, but
Yeah.
it's unfortunate they determined it was our responsibility.
Very good. One point I want to add in response to Councilman Dickinson's question. A couple years ago, then Mayor McCarty, when he was in the Assembly, was able to get a $25 million appropriation when the state had a budget surplus. Funding went to the county. The county was able to buy property to provide housing, a place for housing for folks that were illegally camping in the parkway to have a housing. So that's something that members of the committee in our non-advisory committee capacity can be looking at for in future state budgets is ways of providing housing through state funding that could be helpful on that. Liz, thank you so much. I really appreciate your presentation today. The whole committee does. And if folks have additional questions, I think everybody knows how to contact you.
Yes, absolutely. And also I want to speak again on the point that Member Dickinson presented. There is a regular meeting, I believe you've attended in the past, I've attended in the past at the Sacramento Horsemen's Association, and we are making sure that we are regularly a part of that meeting to help with the communication issue. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. The next two items, I'm going to ask Jennifer Norris, Executive Director of the Wildlife Conservation Board, to talk about the Form 700 and ethics training, very important public disclosure, and WCB update.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the first one is just a friendly reminder. I think Kara has sent emails, but if you are on the naughty list, make sure you do your ethics training because they actually will fine you. I think it's $100 a day. So strongly encourage you to get that done to be on this board. So WCB update, we are deep in the middle of state budget cycles right now. We're attending budget hearings, talking about funding for the next year. If you look at our overall fiscal outlook, the vast majority of the funds that WCB has to spend at this point are from Proposition 4. I think last we spoke, we were a little bit on hold, unsure how quickly we could fund those because of a obscure need for an exemption from the Administrative Procedures Act to put forth our guidelines. It's a long story, but the short answer is we have overcome that hurdle. We are now spending Prop 4 money from last year. We funded a bunch of projects in February, and we're looking forward to being able to expend the funds we got last year over the next 3 board meetings. And then, of course, looking ahead to the to the next budget cycle. You know, we work statewide. We're working on habitat restoration, land acquisition everywhere in the state. But of course, very excited to do work here on the Parkway. Glad we have an allocation this year and point out that that 7 million is out there still for other priorities as you identify them. So thank you. That's it.
Very good. Chip? The next item is committee member updates. Do any members have any updates relevant to the work of the Conservancy and the Parkway?
And take a minute to look at that great mural that we've got at Sutter's Landing, right?
Oh, thank you.
Isn't that a beautiful photograph? Look at that.
Yeah, folks haven't been out there. There's the mural is 20 feet long, 200 feet long, 20 feet high, and it depicts the wildlife of the American River Parkway and Sutter's Landing Park. It's on the south side of the skateboard park, and Mayor McCarty was kind enough to provide funding for it, and we had a whole committee working on this, and the artist did a tremendous job on it. It also includes a number of items that are important to cultural items for the Native American communities that used to live along the river. So highly recommend folks view it. It's on the south side of the skateboard park. And over by the skate park door, there is a little brown box that has a URL code that'll take you to a pamphlet that the artist put together that tells you about each of the animals, each of the cultural artifacts that are described on the described in the on the mural, and it also provides the English name, the Latin name, and where available, the Native American names. So it's a very, very informative, great thing for kids and families to learn more about the Parkway. Any other updates? Wanted to ask, we don't have a tour scheduled this year. The tours in the past have been very, very informative. Kara has put tremendous work into those and wanted to see if there are any other tours that folks would like to see that we haven't scheduled yet, but that we should be thinking about in the future. No ideas presented. I think one of the things we talked about was as projects get completed, providing opportunities for advisory committee members to see the projects that we funded. Our next regular meeting is on October 8th from 10 to 12. It's probably likely in the same location, and we will see everybody again at that time. Finally, any other announcements or items of interest by committee members or members of the public? Seeing none, I think we are ready to adjourn. Thanks everybody who's attended in person or online, and thanks to all the committee members and our speakers today. With no other items on the agenda, look for a motion to adjourn. It's moved, seconded, all in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned, and we will see everybody again on October 8th. Thank you very much.